Part 2.
You will hear a radio program in which a woman called Tracy, who is a market manager in New Zealand, talks about her work. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Have you ever thought of having your own stall in a market? Here in the studio, we have Tracy Cartwright, who's the manager of not one, but two of the city's street markets. Tracy, what got you interested in markets?
Well, I've always liked them. When I was younger, I went travelling in Europe and Turkey, and I went to lots of markets and bazaars there, and I loved the atmosphere. Then, after I came back to New Zealand, I got married, and we bought a house near Mahana Market, in the south of this city. My husband was working in IT, and he actually designed the market's website. In the evenings, when the kids were in bed, I used to do a bit of sewing and knitting, clothes and things I designed myself, and a friend of mine who had a stall at the market offered to display some of them. And to my amazement, the customers loved them. Then I saw in the paper that they were looking for a new market manager, and I thought I'd apply. In fact, the market was having some financial problems, and it was looking as if it might have to close down. The two previous managers had shared the job, but they'd both had to leave at the same time for different reasons. I'd worked in merchandising before, so I had the right sort of experience. I was delighted when I got the job, but I realised I needed to find a new focus for the market. It had been selling all sorts of things, household goods and clothing, and produce from the area like apples and grapes and tomatoes and so on, but to attract the tourists, I decided it'd be better to specialise in things like pottery and jewellery made by the people in the region. One innovation I've made is to have entertainers. We're open to all individuals and groups who want to showcase their talent for an hour or two. We've had singers, clowns, comedians, all sorts. So get in touch if you're interested in performing. Who knows? It could lead to fame and fortune.
And you've now set up a second market?
That's right. I realised that quite a few of the people who had stalls at the market were actually based in the north of the city, and they said they thought there'd be plenty of customers interested in buying their wares up there as well, and of course it'd mean less travelling for them. So I contacted the local authorities, and they were very helpful, and we had the new market set up within 6 months. We've also recently started a kids' market in cooperation with the local primary school. That's just once a month. The children bring along their old toys and books, and even clothes they've grown out of, and they sell them to the public and get to keep the money they make. It really teaches them about how money works.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
All the same, being a market manager can be a tough job. I need to be there in very good time in the morning, even before the stall holders, and I don't get home until late, so that can be quite a challenge. And there's a lot of paperwork and planning, especially if I want to make any changes to the way the market works. I'm quite well organised though, so I don't mind that. But I do get fed up with having to make sure all the stallholders keep to the rules that the council impose on us. I'd thought I might have problems if there were disagreements between stallholders, but in fact that hasn't ever happened.
And what advice would you give to someone wanting to have a stall in a market?
It doesn't really matter if you start off with a specialised market or in a more general one, but you must have a really attractive setup. That's essential, and make sure your display stands out. Once you've established that, you needn't make many changes to it. People will recognise you and the sorts of things you display. And make sure your prices are appropriate. You need to do some research there before you start. You might find things don't sell all that quickly at the beginning, but it's important not to give up. Some people might look and go away, but then come back later.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.